Hello, everyone. So, we are going to begin with chapter number 2 today, which is basically the first numerical chapter in our course. So, I am going to split the chapter in two parts and kind of start slowly. Hopefully, you can see my screen, and I'm going to go into the slideshow mode. And here we go. Okay. So, basically, the idea is to show you how to classify different costs correctly, which is one of the most important topics in this course. As we go along, I will talk about the importance of why we are doing what we are doing, but let's just get started. Okay, so these are some of the very basics, almost like the alphabet of managerial accounting. The first thing is to say what is cost. Since cost is going to be a very important word in our course, it is better to all be on the same page. So, cost is the amount of money spent, okay, to do anything. Anything that you are spending money on can be called cost. The next item we'll talk about is a cost object. Anything whose cost you are trying to measure, okay, is a cost object. So if I want to say what is the cost of making one pepperoni pizza in a pizza store, then pepperoni pizza is my cost object. All right. The third thing we talk about is a cost driver. So now you understand the meaning of the word cost, you understand the meaning of the word driver, I hope. So now we can put them together and say a cost driver is what causes a cost to increase or decrease. For example, if I make more pizzas, I would need more cheese, I would need more flour. So the number of pizzas is my cost driver because it is causing my cost to increase. Next, what we have here is the term called cost accumulation. Cost accumulation simply means you are gathering costs together. It's almost like your computer where you organize your files according to folders. Whatever is similar goes into the same folder. So here we talk about cost accumulation, different type of costs. For example, all different type of raw materials will go into one bin, all different type of labors will go into another bin, and so on. We'll come back to cost accumulation a little bit later in more detail. Okay, so following closely after cost accumulation is cost assignment. Once you have accumulated cost, now you will do cost assignment, meaning attach the collected costs to the cost object. Whatever is your cost object, now you start assigning the cost. Okay, let's take the simple example of a coffee shop. Here we are saying coffee beans, like raw material, will cost $10. Okay, more raw material, milk, then you have labor, like employee wages, you are paying them, let's suppose $50. Okay. These are all different type of costs. Another type of cost that we have is the rent of the kitchen or the shop where you are going to be doing the work. So you can see now we have different type of costs as we defined the cost word. Okay, we will define the cost object on the next slide. Okay, and then we'll talk about driver accumulation and assignment. Everybody understands? Once you are given costs, how do you go through the process of cost assignment is the basic goal. Let us keep going. So here is our cost driver. I want to know in my total cost system, what is the cost of one cup of coffee? Realize that it is not as simple a problem as it might suggest. For example, we have this total rent. Okay, how much of the rent should go into one cup of coffee? Okay, on what basis? Right? So let's look at some of the things that we have here. I'm going to try to activate my pen here. Okay. So this one says, should we take only ingredients, meaning only materials, coffee beans and milk? You know that would not be right because who is going to pay for labor? So employee wages have to be included. Okay, I have taken the simple example, so there is only rent, but there could be electricity, other utilities, rent. Okay, how to cover that in one cup of coffee? On what basis? Meaning, what should be a good driver for these kind of costs? Okay, so all these questions come to our mind. Now, let us come to the topic of cost classification. In this video, we will talk about three basic type of cost classifications. One is called direct versus indirect cost. Second is called variable versus fixed cost. And the third is called product versus period cost. For each one of them, we are going to try to give you the definition and the explanation. So, what is the problem here? We have a coffee shop, we have spent money on some cost, and I want to know the cost of my cost object, which is a coffee cup. Okay, there are different type of costs given, meaning accumulated costs are there, and I am looking for a cost driver. What does that mean? What will cause my cost to go up or go down? Okay, finally we can calculate the cost of each cup of coffee, meaning cost assignment will happen. Now think about why this matters. Okay, why do we care about it? Okay, because managers need to set prices. The owner of the coffee shop or the manager need to know what should be the correct price for a cup of coffee, which should include the costs, which should also include a reasonable amount of profit. He might have some other decisions to make, meaning, is one type of coffee more profitable than another? Okay, is one type of coffee too costly? How can I control my costs, etc., etc.? So we are calculating costs, but that's not the end. Means we are essentially calculating costs so that we can understand where they are coming from and why and how I can change them if necessary. So, the first thing that we will start is this one: direct versus indirect costs. What are direct versus indirect costs is one of the basic cost classifications. Okay, so look at these costs that you are given. Given these costs, what do you think is directly traceable to serving a cup of coffee, okay, and which are not? For example, it should be quite clear as to how much coffee beans that is, and how much milk is going into making one cup of coffee. Okay, so direct costs are those costs which are directly traceable to our cost object, which is one cup of coffee. Similarly, if I pay, let's say, $50 an hour to a employee and he makes, let's say, 10 cups of coffee in an hour, then I can divide 50 by 10 and I can say that $5 must be the per coffee cost. Okay, but how do I do rent? Okay, rent is a monthly number. Some days I make 100 cups of coffee, other days I make only 20 cups of coffee, maybe. So, what should be a good cost driver for rent is not easy, and therefore, we typically call rent to be the indirect cost. All right, let us take a further look at the next ones. Why is it not moving? Oh, because I wrote. I am going to discard this and then I will move forward. There you go. Okay, continuing. So on this page, what we have is the same data that we had before. Okay, I need to write this down. I have the same data as before, but this time I'm talking about variable versus fixed costs. Okay, what are variable costs? What are fixed costs? We will talk about that. Okay, so as this bullet point says, variable costs are those that vary or change with production. For example, if I make more and more coffee cups, I would need more and more coffee beans. I would need more and more milk. I might need more and more labor hours or labor people. But I may not need more rent. Why? I have a kitchen. I can make as many cups as I want. So, costs that stay constant, okay, at least in the short run. Okay, we will talk about this concept more elaborately, but simply speaking, if I make one more cup of coffee and my costs go up, then it is a variable cost. But if the cost remains the same, then it is called a fixed cost. Okay, finally, let us talk about what are product versus period costs. Okay, as you can see, costs that follow the product simply are called product costs, which means if I sell the coffee, okay, the costs are gone with that. Meaning all manufacturing costs are gone. But suppose I advertise my coffee store, okay, then even if I don't sell anything, I'll have to charge it to my income statement, right? So period costs are those costs which are not tied to production. In our simple example, almost all the costs are product costs, and therefore we are not seeing an example of period cost, but we will expand the example further. Okay, let us erase this so that I can move further. Oh, I have to erase this, sorry. One second. I have to trash this, otherwise I can't move forward. You learn as you go. Okay. So now here I am giving you a simple example of a campus coffee center. Sorry, copy center, not coffee center. Okay. So here is a copy center that provides printing and copying services, right? So they can make several different type of products. You are given a whole bunch of data on the right side. As you can see, you are going to look at paper and ink, you are going to look at rent and electricity, etc., etc. Okay, so whole bunch of stuff is given to you. The question is saying take all the costs that you are given and classify them into either direct or indirect, variable or fixed, or product cost or period cost. You just learn the three concepts, so you should be able to take a look at it, right? Are you ready? Remember, direct costs are those that can easily be traced to a product. So go through the list, okay, and see which ones do you think are direct costs. Okay, take a look and say, is this a direct cost or not? Is this an indirect cost or not? Each time you are asking a question, if I make one more print, okay, will my cost go up or go down? If the answer is yes, it is a direct cost. If the answer is no, then it is an indirect cost. Typically, we say that material and labor are direct costs and most of the other overheads are indirect costs. We will learn to separate them on the next slide. Let me not forget to clear and then move. Okay, so before we finally go to the classification, let us remember that we are assuming that the amount of printing volume, number of pages that they print, that is, we call that volume, that can change. But for example, the rent in our current setting is going to remain the same. No matter how many pages you print, your rent of the factory or copy center remains the same. Clear? That will help us decide which ones are variable costs, which ones are fixed costs, etc., etc. Okay, now here we go. I have just copied the numbers one more time so that you can see what we have. Okay, and without going into the dollar amounts, I first want you to understand the concept. For example, out of the cost that you are given, we get the pen one more time. Pen. Sorry. These two, okay, are our direct costs. Okay. Notice why supervisor salary is not a direct cost. Because if I print one more page, supervisor salary remains the same. Okay. Machine maintenance essentially means repair and maintenance. Sorry, my line was not direct. Okay. Maintenance is typically happening, okay, periodically. It does not go up. If I print a lot of more pages, maintenance does go up, okay, but not with each page, okay. Similarly, the rent for coffee center space does not go up when I print one more page, okay. So these two are direct costs, and almost everything is an indirect cost in our example. Now, notice coincidentally, whatever is the direct cost is also the variable cost, which means if I print one more page, my paper cost will go up, my worker wages will go up if I pay them, let's say, per hour, and they print 100 pages. Okay, if I need 200 pages, I'll have to pay them for 2 hours. So they go up. Okay, but most of the other numbers that do not change every time I add one more page to my printing job are fixed costs. So that's how we say these two are variable costs and all others are fixed costs in our current example. Finally, let us take a look at what costs are product costs. Remember, product cost is just another word for what costs are manufacturing costs. Okay, so what are the costs out of our list that we are given that are the manufacturing costs of a product? Okay, notice we are saying all these are manufacturing costs, and this is a non-manufacturing cost. Why? Advertising is a marketing cost, which is a non-manufacturing cost. So out of all the costs that you are given, everything that is incurred in a factory or in a plant, in our case, copying center, are manufacturing or product costs. Product costs, manufacturing cost, okay, mean the same thing. Period cost meaning non-manufacturing cost. Different terms used, but in case it helps you to decide which one is a manufacturing cost or non-manufacturing cost, and the word product or period, okay, is a little less clear, then you can go that way. Okay. So once again, before we end, what is the goal here? We are trying to understand how different cost classifications will help managers make better decision. So, as a parting shot, let me put a question for you. Suppose in our printing machine, in our printing factory, that is, okay, printing volume goes up by 50%. So, which of the costs that you are given you think will remain the same and which ones will go up? Clearly, the cost of paper and ink and wages will go up, but clearly the rent will remain the same, and so on. So, that is the way to think about different cost classifications and making decisions. We are going to continue with the discussion on this chapter, second part, as we go along. Okay, for now, okay, this is what we have. Have a great day.